Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mavit Rishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vridavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandathami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Vindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamritaduhe Namaha Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So welcome everyone. So we are on this chapter number 3. So today we are going to start with really why are we studying Bhagavad Gita and what is the relevance of this particular 3rd chapter. So as you know, I'm cleaning up my house and I came across this really old issue of Tapovan Prasad. And this Tapovan Prasad was all on Bhagavad Gita. And I came across this beautiful story and I cannot help just narrating the story because it really shows the power of particularly the 3rd chapter. So this story is a very simple story, but nevertheless powerful. It's a story about an old farmer who lived on his farm in the mountains. And that's who you see. This is the farmer. And he had a young grandson. And here, I think he was following the Pitra Yajna very carefully. He really respected his grandfather a lot. And his grandfather used to read the Bhagavad Gita every day. And so his grandson really wanted to be just like his grandfather. So he wanted to emulate him in any way possible that he could do it. So one day, the grandfather, gave him a test because the grandson actually asked the grandfather, Grandpa, I try to read the Bhagavad Gita just like you do, but I really don't understand most of it. And whatever I understand, I immediately forget it as soon as I close the book. So what good is it for me to read this Bhagavad Gita at this young age? That was his question. So the grandfather was at that time putting some coal into the basket. And so he quietly turned to him and he told him, guess what, Sonny? Why don't you take this basket to the river? And mind you, this was a dirty coal basket. He said, just take this dirty coal basket and then bring me a basket of water. So the boy did as he was told. But then, as you all know, the water just leaked out before he could even bring the basket home. So the grandfather then laughed and said, you'll have to just move a little faster next time. And he sent the boy again to the river. So this time the boy ran faster. But again, the basket just emptied before he could even go a few steps. So out of breath, he told his grandfather, but it's impossible to carry water in this basket why don't I just take a bucket? But the old man said, I don't want a bucket of water. All I need is a basket of water. You are not trying hard enough. So at this point, the boy kind of figured that maybe he knows what he has to do. He knows it's a mission impossible. So he wanted to somehow impress his grandfather. So he took the basket into the water, and then again he ran and he said, see, grandfather, it is useless. This basket is not the way. So the grandfather then tells him, you think it is useless, but look at the basket. So the boy looked at the basket and he saw for the first time that the basket looked different. The basket has been washed clean of any kind of coal residue because of the number of times he went to the river to fetch the water. And it was now clean inside and out. So the old man told his grandsons, that is how it is with our minds too. Our minds have to be cleaned out. Only then the knowledge will sink in. So the purity of mind is what we're expecting out of the third chapter. So the third chapter talks about the purity of mind, and our mind is like this basket with lots of holes. And even as we try to listen to even as we're trying to study Bhagavad Gita, but it doesn't stick. And in this day and age, where we are faced with so much of distractions, those distractions are really the holes by which this knowledge, neither is it able to sink, nor is our mind available, because it's always leaking out. So again, third chapter is all about purity of mind. And it is about really improving our mind in such a way that it becomes clean and it can hold the knowledge really well. So I hope you like the story. And now let's move on to our reflection time. So today we're going to start with the very first thing, which is, what are the 5 daily yajnas that we should do every day? Mind you, this is, the yajnas are, even though we said it's a sacrifice, but I have a slide where we can talk about it. But what are the 5 daily yajnas? Yeah, go ahead.
Dev Yajna.
Deva Yajna, correct. And then?
Buddha Yajna.
Bhuta Yajna. And
Manushya Yajna.
Yeah. Does anybody else have a
Pitru Yajna.
Pitri Yajna?
And Rishi Yajna.
Rishi Yajna. I think there's one more.
No, 5. We told the 5.
So Deva Yajna, Pitri Yajna, Bhuta Yajna,
Manushya Yajna.
Manushya Yajna. Exactly. The 5 yajnas. So I think you all know what it is. So the next question is going to be a little more challenging. Can you give a current example for each of the yajnas? And last time, if you remember, Meenuji gave a very good example of wearing a COVID mask for one of the yajnas, Manushya Yajna, I think. So for each one of them, do you think you might be able to come up with an example? So let's say for Pitra Yajna. Pitra Yajna is about really offering a prayer or thanking to our parents and our forefathers. So can you give an example for how we could practice this yajna?
Like doing the Malaya Bhaksham?
The Mahalaya Paksham is one of them, but that is more of, it is a seasonal thing, right? So if you want to do daily.
Sorry. Go ahead, Sunitha, you were saying.
Yeah.
Being nice to our elders and our parents, respect them and taking care of them.
Very good, very good. Be nice to them and thank them and taking care. That's good. That's good. What about the others? The other yajnas. So we talked about Pitri Yajna. For Deva Yajna, any idea?
Acknowledging nature.
It's about nature, yes. So how would we practice this yajna?
By planting trees, taking care, recycling, taking care of nature, respecting, and not taking more than what we can. Don't waste anything.
Those two waste anything, yes. Very nice, very beautiful. Yeah, so conserving the land resources, right? Yeah. Okay, so that is about the Pitri Yajna. What about Bhuta Yajna? Bhuta Yajna is basically taking care of all, the living species. When I say living, it could be the plants, the animals, the birds, insects, microorganisms. Maybe even taking care of the COVID virus, I mean, respecting the virus for what it is.
By practicing non-violence.
Practicing non-violence, okay.
Not killing animals and all, like being.
Not killing animals, yeah. So there were a couple of movies like Chicken Run, for example, right? That really tells you about how animals, chicken are slaughtered, for example. Yeah. Good. Manusha Yajna? I think there's plenty for Manusha Yajna.
Yeah. Feeding the poor,
Yes.
beggars, and taking care of them.
And even within our family, I think sometimes.
Yes, society. Even in the family and society, we can do the needful when the situation arises.
Right, right.
I mean, depending on the situation.
Yes, very good. And then for the last one, which is Rishi Yajna.
Following the values given by the rishis and respecting them.
Exactly. So the rishis have already laid out the system of living, right? So the question is, how do I follow that? Yeah. Great. Wonderful. Okay. So what are the three qualities of the jnani that was explained in, I think, Shloka 16 or 17? Yeah, in this Shloka number 17.
17.
Yes.
Who rejoices in himself and self-satisfied and contented.
Yes. Any idea, Amma, the Sanskrit words for those?
No, I don't know much Sanskrit.
No problem. Anybody else who can? Those are beautiful words. Could be even named for grandchildren, if we give them.
Atmarati,
Atmarati.
Atmatripta, and Atmani.
And Atmasantushta.
Atmasantushta, okay.
Yeah. So well contented, well satisfied, and always reveling in the self, or happiness is always happy. Great. Wonderful. So I wanted to put this up a little bit, although we have spoken about it quite a bit here. But, when we think about the yajna, we talk about it as if it's a sacrifice. And I think last time we said it is a sacrifice. When we say sacrifice, it's not sacrificing things that, I don't want, so I sacrifice it. No, that is not what it is. It is about sacrificing our ego and our egocentric desires, or, anything connected with ego, whatever I really think I want to give it up, that one, right? So in this regard, the few nice terms that could be thought about for yajna is one of them which Gurudev always uses as a cooperative endeavor, cooperative endeavor. However, when I looked at the exact meaning of endeavor, maybe the meaning has changed in the dictionary, the Google dictionary, since Gurudev, put it. I think when he wanted to put this word endeavor, it was more of cooperative, endeavor, as in something you want to start off, something as a cooperative action in the form of starting something beautiful. So I think the word venture also would sound good here. So cooperative venture. So when we all work together, then something beautiful happens. Again, Gurudev uses the word X factor. You could bring everybody together, but even in a team, for example, at work or whatever, or even in a family, or even when you're preparing a wedding has to take place, or anything where all of them have to come together, you can bring the people, you can bring the resources, you can bring technology, you can bring the knowledge. Everything can be brought together. But there is one thing which can make it work. Any idea what that is? And that is actually this yajna spirit. And yajna spirit is nothing but syncing our own individual individuality, so to speak. For example, if I'm working in a project team, and if I work with this idea that among all the 5 people, I am the one who's going to be recognized, guess what? That will lead to a team's downfall, So the thing that works in all this is the ability to bring down my own ego and anything which is connected to me about my fame, my glory, all that. So that is the cooperative venture. That is what is the yajna spirit. So another beautiful word we could think about this is gratitude. So when we did the 5 yajnas, we could think about how the 5 yajnas are nothing but a gratitude to the forefathers, Pitra, a gratitude to the people around me, gratitude towards all the birds and animals and its insects which make up the whole ecosystem. So, for example, when you look at I was just thinking about it today when it is raining here, right? And when it rains, you see all these earthworms which come out. These earthworms have been doing such a great job in burrowing through the earth and keeping the soil, sort of fresh and active and everything. We don't even think about them that way, right? So we have to offer this gratitude to the earthworms, offer the gratitude to all the cows and cows, offer our gratitude to all the animals, even the deer which walks around here. They all keep up the ecosystem. So I look at yajna also as a gratitude. It's by practicing this gratitude that we really evolve. Another way is looking at it as a debt for, which we are paying back to all these 5 things in order for us to evolve. So I guess I was in my own mananam here. So I sort of put that, okay, in all these yajnas, what does it mean currently? So I have this and then what are the benefits if I follow it? And what are the consequences if I don't follow it? So Pitri Yajna is respect for elders and previous generations. The benefits is the maintenance of culture and harmony. And the consequences, if I don't follow it, is loss of traditions, tension in families, those kind of things. Deva Yajna, respect for laws of nature. Good. So if the benefit out of this, when I practice this, I have a good prediction of weather patterns and prosperity, and it leads to prosperity overall. But if I don't follow this, the consequences, there's environmental damage, climatic changes, and all the other things that Meenuji mentioned so beautifully, all that can happen. Bhuta Yajna, respect for all creatures. And what it teaches me is love, compassion, sensitivity. And consequences is, unnecessary killing of animals. Manushya Yajna, respect for all humanity. Again, love, compassion, and oneness. And if you don't do this, wars, tensions, anxiety, stress. Rishi Yajna, respect for knowledge. Benefits, really knows, I know what my path is, lowers of anxiety and stress. If I don't do this knowledge part of it, you can see we are constantly inventing ourselves. Constantly, we're spending so much amount of money and on technologies, constantly all these upgrades that keep coming up. If you don't, if you really have a good idea of this knowledge, we can be building much, much better products also, I think. So again, this is at a high level, which I'm using this as a way to bring the relevance of third chapter here. So we saw this last time already, but I won't go through it. So how do I practice this? Is by doing this daily practice of 5 things. And these are scientifically, we said, the laws which we need to practice as part of Deva Yajna, how it works. So this is the thing. Okay, so last week we finished the wheel of action. For today, we'll take up 2 topics, the quality of exceptional people. We saw last time about this, how people, how the wheel of action works. We'll just run through the shlokas very quickly. And then finally, when we see the qualities, the question is, which will come to mind is, really, this seems like a very high bar there. I want to be there, but I don't know if I can. So give me some examples. Give me some examples of people who have already reached. So this is why we have the shlokas 19 and 20, which follows this. So we saw this cosmic wheel of action last time, how action leads to, we have food. Because of food, we have, it's only annad bhavanti bhutani, that example. Then beings here, and through their actions, we do through Yajna spirit, when we have rain, and the rain then creates the food. So this is a cycle we talked about. One point I wanted to mention here, and that is why I put this up, is when we think about rain, our minds get so narrow to think that, okay, I'm looking at water. But here we think about rain as the fundamental reason for the whole cycle to start. If we look at it that way, then what happens is you can translate rain to the prosperity which exists. Simple example is Silicon Valley, for example. If you think about it, 50 years ago, maybe there was not much going on in that part of California. But then you found that so many companies started moving in, and small companies, big companies, many people moved in, talent moved in, and they all worked together to make the Silicon Valley one of the most prosperous places on earth, right? So that is what that rain really signifies. It signifies prosperity, and it signifies how people come together to create new things. So think about it that way as the rain element here. And so this is where we saw that. Now, here the question then comes is, it's only when we have that Yajna spirit that the whole world goes round. So now you may say, but I see so much of selfishness. I see people are only thinking about themselves. And I really don't see this world going around, right? But Lord Krishna assures us that there is a wheel that is going on, and that cosmic wheel is going because of few people who are really practicing the Yajna spirit and who are keeping that whole wheel from going around. However, there are a few people, there are quite a few people, I would say, who are not doing that. And that is what Lord Krishna is saying in this shloka. Evam pravartitam chakram nanu vartayati yaha aghayur indriya ramaha mogham parthasa jivati. The key word indriya ramaha. So people who are hung up on just materialism, indriyas meaning sense organs, ramaha indicating reveling in the objects of the sense organs, those people are aghayur indriya. They just don't get up. They just don't get it. They are just digging a big hole for themselves. Aghayur indriya ramaha. They live in sin, like he says here. And such people, they are useless. Mogham parthasa jivati. And if because of them, you see that they really are, they don't follow this wheel which is set in motion, where the Yajna spirit is the sort of the trigger that keeps that whole wheel going. So then in Shloka 17, we saw that while such people who are materialistic, who are very individualistic, and who are living only for themselves, they don't really, have the wheel. They don't sort of, they participate in the wheel to whatever extent, but it's a few people who are doing it. And those people are the ones which in Shloka 17, we saw they are the ones who are reveling in the happiness of the self. Atma tushti, atma triptaha, atma ratihi. Okay, atma santushtaha. Atma tushti also means happiness, who is very happy, contented with the happiness, who revel in their happiness. So yastvat maritireva syat, atma triptascha manavaha. Manavaha, people who are triptascha, and then yastvat, those people, maritireva syat, atmanyeva cha santushtaha. So they are just contented, and tasya karyam na vidyate. So these people, tasya karyam na vidyate. That means that these people don't necessarily have to participate in that cosmic wheel that he's saying. But do they participate? Of course they do. Of course they do. However, these people are people who, may just stay in a cave or whatever, just meditate, and they're not necessarily participating in this wheel of creating more jobs, or creating a lot of products, or creating more food for everyone. So these people are really not involved with that aspect. Primarily, the reason is they are not really interested for themselves. They are just interested in doing whatever is needed. So tasmat karyam na vidyate. They are sort of, they don't necessarily have to participate in this wheel of action, and that they're sort of exempted. They can stay by themselves. But for all of us who have a lot of desires, and who are wanting to exhaust its desires, who want to clean up the mind of these desires, it is a must for us to participate in that wheel of action, primarily to purify our minds, and primarily to exhaust our desires by doing it selflessly. So this is what was said in 17. And now we've come to shloka number 18, which is really, again, a nice shloka which talks about these kind of people, those people who don't participate in this wheel of action. Now, for all of us, when I said that we are in this wheel of action, we always engage in an activity where I'm looking at as what can I get out of this activity. So for example, if I'm going to work for 8 hours, I already know what I make per hour, and I want to make sure at the end of the month that I do get the salary of whatever I'm doing there for, right? So too, if there's something else that I'm going to do an action, I always try to see what is in it that I can gain from it. And also, if I don't do something, what am I going to lose for? What am I going to lose out of this whole thing of not participating in that action? And sometimes there is also a third reason why we end up doing certain actions. And that is, I don't know if you guessed that already, but it is peer pressure, and this pressure from external reasons. All these are reasons why we drive ourselves to do actions. So one is, what is in it for me, what I can get, or what will I lose if I don't do it? The second reason. And a third reason, which is the pressure. When we are children, we are pressured by our parents to do what the neighbor's child is doing or my friend's child is doing. So that's a pressure which pressurizes us. As we grow older, it is our peers. Oh, my friend got this or whatever, I need to also work harder, those kind of things. At work, also sometimes it's peer. And then, so one pressure the other, because of which we try to do it. So in this next shloka, we see that these people who I mentioned earlier, who are sort of exempt from this wheel of life, it says that for such people, there is no compulsion at all. So we will chant the shloka and we'll try to analyze the shloka a little more. Naiva tasya krite narthaha, naiva tasya krite narthaha, na krite neha kaschana, na krite neha kaschana, na chasya sarva bhuteshu, na chasya sarva bhuteshu, kaschidartavya pashrayah, kaschidartavya pashrayah. So, na eva tasya kritena artaha. Na artaha indicating any purpose. Tasya kritena, there's no need for kritena to act. For such a person, there is no any need for, there's no purpose at all. He doesn't do it like for the three reasons that I gave before. Such a person is absolutely fearless. He doesn't care whether the society wants him to do something or not want him to do something. And na akritena iha kaschana. So he doesn't even have, nor even any compulsion not to act in the world. So he doesn't even worry about whether he's going to lose out if he doesn't do something. Nacha asya sarva bhuteshu. In spite of that, on no being whatsoever does he depend. Sarva, he's not dependent on anybody for anything. Nacha asya sarva bhuteshu, not dependent on anybody at all. Kaschit artha vyapashrayah. He does not depend for any of that from anybody. Isn't that a very powerful concept there? It almost makes us look at our own actions and think about, where are these three things? Where am I using these three things? Do I do things for some things? Do I do something for, I do something just because I feel I'm going to lose out on something? Or am I doing it because somebody wants me to do it? So this is the thing that we need to think about. And this by itself is a sadhana for how I can maintain my own, whatever I'm looking for. So literally the person is talking, such a person is not looking outside for happiness. They are so content within themselves that they're not dependent on anything. They're not dependent that an ice cream is going to give them happiness. They're not dependent on the fact whatever comes their way, they just accept it and they just enjoy it. So that's the whole idea of what this is, the shloka is trying to say. And I couldn't resist pulling this beautiful shloka, which I've shared before in another lecture from Chandogya Upanishad. So the shloka says that yo vai bhuma tat sukham na alpe sukham asti. Only that which is infinite, bhuma indicating that absolute infinitude, that infinitude, tat sukham, is the source of happiness. Na, not. Alpe indicating finite or in the small things. Na alpe sukham asti. So Chandogya Upanishad, beautiful shloka indicating that I myself am happiness and I need to know that. And our pursuit of happiness, today we pursue happiness in objects, in the things. And again, going back to, as I showed in the previous one, here, he doesn't depend, such a person doesn't depend on any of the happiness because the person recognizes that he or she is happiness himself or herself. So that happiness is the ultimate happiness. So long as there is something that we feel has to be achieved, and it could be anything, it could be either a material object, a relationship, or a particular situation, whether it is a sattvic, even sattvic happiness, for example, is of course, sattvic happiness is better than rajasic or tamasic, but nevertheless, even at that level, the person who's a jnani already knows that what is the happiness within himself or herself. So purity of mind can be obtained only when I continuously ponder upon this and recognize that there is no sukham outside and I don't have to depend on anything. And this, once I recognize I am that infinite happiness, and that happiness is not going to decrease or increase. There's another beautiful quotation here. Next time, one of these times I'll put it up there too. And it's so then I can really so in that sense the shloka is very beautiful, and so such a person is exempt from the wheel of life. So for such a person there are no do's or don'ts. Tasya karyam na vidyate ko vidhi ko nishedha, ko vidhi ko nishedha. That's what Shankaracharya says. Where is the question of any kind of injunctions for such a person? Because when I say injunctions or any limitations, we think we are free, right? We have freedom of speech, we have freedom to vote, we have freedom to, of course, we don't have freedom to drive anything. That's not the point here, but we have freedom in so many different ways, and we think that's the freedom. But actually, our freedom is really curtailed by the fact that I think I'm Sunitha, for example. The minute I say I'm Sunitha, all the things associated with Sunitha becomes a limitation, and it curtains from what I want to do. But a jnani has removed that shackle of individuality. For such a person, ko vidhi ko nishedha. There is ko vidhi, what is the do's and what are the don'ts? There is nothing. And for when there is no I-ness, when Sunitha herself is not there, why would she worry about whether she's doing something for happiness or whether she's enjoying something for happiness? You just allow Ishvara to work through you, and then you surrender to that Lord, and he takes care of it. So that is what the shloka so beautifully says that. An example to think about it is, for example, in the night time, we are almost close to 9:30 and pretty soon we're going to go to sleep. And you can see that when you want to go to sleep, what happens is you sometimes have to try a little bit, right? You're trying to read a book, you're trying to have some soft music, you're trying to lower the temperature in the room, all these things, you do it. But once you fall asleep, are you even aware of anything that you did? Not really, right? So to a jnani, for example, is at that state where the individuality is not even there. So the person doesn't have to do anything at all to get to a particular place. So that's the whole idea of the shloka here. So here I want to give another story. I don't know how many of you have been to Jimmy John's long time back. You know, this is, I mean, I know many of us are now just working from home and we don't get a chance to go out and get lunch or anything. But there was a time when I was working at Wyandotte and there was a Jimmy John's close by. And so there was a nice kind of a story there. And this story is actually about, you know, an American investment banker. So this investment banker, you know, he has, you know how it is when you're working in Wall Street in New York, you work 80 hours a day and 80 hours a week, 80 hours a week. There is no time. But then somehow you steal about 3 or 4 days of vacation you get in a whole year or something. So this American banker, he goes all the way to a small coastal village for his vacation. So when he's there, he noticed, let me see, yeah. So he noticed that, there was this fisherman, and he was trying to catch fish. And in his boat, there were, several large tuna fish. And so the American was really impressed by this Mexican fisherman. And he said, wow, you're doing a great job catching all this fish. So how long does it take for you to catch them? So the Mexican said, I've been doing this for a while. It takes me hardly any time. So then the American asked him, so then why don't you stay longer and get more fish? So the Mexican said, well, I have enough to support my family's needs. So then the American said, but then what do you do with the rest of your time? So the fisherman said, well, I sleep late, I fish a little, I play with my children, I take siesta with my wife, I stroll down the village, and then I just sip a little bit of wine, and then I play my guitar with my amigos, and I have a full busy life. So this American investment banker, he's like, wait a minute, do you know who I am? The fisherman said, I don't know. So the American goes, well, I'm a Harvard MBA. And guess what? I'm going to help you out here. You should be spending more time fishing there. And you should be buying a bigger boat. And then from the bigger boat, you can get even bigger. You can buy several boats. And then you're going to have a fleet of fishing boats. And then instead of selling all this fish to some middle guy who's going to make more money than you do, guess what? You can eliminate him. You can be the processor. You can open your own cannery. And then you can have a whole product processing, distribution, manufacturing stuff. And then, you're not going to be staying here, You're going to move with me to New York. And we're going to expand this whole enterprise. So the Mexican, let him finish the whole thing and then said, so how long do you think this is going to take? So the American said, well, maybe around 20 to 25 years. But what then? The Mexican asked. So the American replied, well, When the time is right, you can even open an IPO and then sell your company stock and etc. And then you're going to make millions. The fisherman said, millions? And then what am I going to do? So the American said, then you can retire. You can move to a small coastal village where you sleep late, fish a little, play with your kids, take siesta with your wife, stroll to the village, sip wine, and play your guitar with your amigos. So the Mexican was puzzled. He looked at him and he said, but am I not doing that right now? So the moral of the story is many men go fishing all their lives without knowing that it is not fish that they are after. So that's the story of our lives, where we have not seen the contentment which is really our own nature. And we go round and round getting our happiness in small things and thinking that that is the ultimate. So the Mexican fisherman obviously has understood where his happiness lies. And of course, we are not talking about the Sukham, the Atmarati Sukham, but in his own way, he has understood that he doesn't have to go running around to bigger things for his own happiness. So I have here a picture of a Jnani Purusha who has really understood that happiness, which is his own self or her own self. But one thing to recognize is such a person, it's not as if the person doesn't do any karma at all. Such a person does do karma when necessary, but only for the most essential things. Such a person also eats food, takes a shower, sleeps, everything just like any one of us. But the thing about it is that he or she is not, doesn't make that as a vasana and is able to go beyond it. And such a person recognizes that he or she's infinitude is in himself or her own happiness. And so for such a person, there is no karmas as such, nothing to bind the person. So this brings us to our shloka number 19, where we are trying to now see about more on the same lines here. Let us do the shloka here. Tasmadasakta satatam. Tasmadasakta satatam. Karyam karma samachara. Karyam karma samachara. Asakto hyacharan karma. Asakto hyacharan karma. Paramapnoti purushaha. Paramapnoti purushaha. So this is the concluding shloka in that section of where Lord Krishna is trying to explain, after explaining the wheel of action, then he explained about a person who can basically be away from the wheel of action. And the thing to do is, what are the qualities? We talked about the qualities of him. And then we talked about this aspect of how the person behaves and lives. So here in this shloka, we have to complete that whole line of arguments of that 4 shlokas which we saw here. He's trying to say that, people, nobody can even live for a single moment without doing action, right? So we saw that in the shloka number 4 of the 3rd chapter. Action is really this expression of life. And then we saw about how, even though we said that nobody can be without doing any action, we saw in this last 2 shlokas where Jnani, though, he or she, doesn't have to work because obviously he has nothing to gain, nothing to lose, and really there is no pressure at all to work, right? So this is why he says, Tasmat, from learning from this Jnani's example, Tasmat asakta satatam. Therefore, asaktaha. Saktaha means attachment. Asaktaha indicating no attachment. So therefore, satatam. Satatam indicating always. Therefore, always asaktaha, without any attachment, do your karma, do your action, karma or karyam, and you should perform actions, which is your kartavya karma. Kartavya karma is the karyam which is referring to. Karyam, karma, samachara. Keyword there, samachara, which is do it to the best of the ability. Samacharam, with perform actions, samachara. So what happens when I do this? Asaktaha he, therefore, he is again a word indicating for sure. He, asaktaha, which is again without attachment. Acharan karma, by doing this karma without acharan karma, without any attachment, such a person now attains that state of that jnani. Param, param indicating the highest. Apnoti, attains, attains. Purushaha, a person attains that supreme being. So this is the again a kind of a shloka which brings everything together. So the whole idea is not to work without any attachment. So here, if you remember the shlokas from second chapter, which is, we saw sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labhau jaya jayau. That is one for explaining about this non-attachment. And then we had also karmanye vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, that one. And then there are a couple of shlokas which will be coming up soon about yatyada charati shreshtaha, those shlokas. But the whole idea is trying to say that ultimately to work without attachment itself. So, and here there's just a Guruji joke here, which I wanted to mention. So a boy, tells his friend, come on, can you come and play with my dog? And he says, so the boy says, okay, sure. But then he says, he asked me, but does your dog bite? So the guy with the dog, he says, well, that's what I really want to find out, whether it really bites or not. So why don't you come and play? So the idea here is to show that how we have to perform this duties by no attachment at all. And, Arjuna would have really wanted to know, what does that mean? What does that mean by not working, with attachment or not attachment? But basically, this is the only way that we can free ourselves. Krishna's, conclusion of the statement is tasmat. Therefore, when you work without attachment, that is the only way we can actually get rid of our desires. And as you know, the desires themselves are because of the seed called vasanas, which causes this desire to happen. And because of that, we want to, this will really bring down all that, and I can be completely free from any shackles of my own vasanas. So at this point, I think Arjuna would have had another questioning look, and Lord Krishna, being the teacher that he is, would have understood what Arjuna's question was. And again, so much to learn from Bhagavad Gita, in the sense that each of these shlokas, when it is given at that level, you can see that the perfection of the teacher coming out in how he's addressing this question. Because Arjuna's question would have been, we can only imagine this, that, Krishna has given this philosophy and he has given these steps on how to go there. But, we all need this proof of the pudding, right? We want to know, show me in front of me. Otherwise, I'm not going to believe you. So here we have Lord Krishna giving an example. And as a true teacher, he doesn't just bring an example from, just like that, like, for example, if you know that a child is struggling in school, okay, and if the mom were to give the child an example of somebody who's doing so good, and, and try to motivate the child, you can imagine the child is going to feel very defeated. He's like, okay, mom, I'm never going to get there. Why are you giving that example of that kid, who has so many other things going? That's not going to work for me. So give me an example that I can relate to. That's what a child would say, right? And that's exactly what you see Lord Krishna giving in this shloka number 20. So let's do the shloka here. Karmanyaiva hi samsiddhim. Karmanyaiva hi samsiddhim. Astita janakadayaha. Astita janakadayaha. Lokasangrahamevapi. Lokasangrahamevapi. Sampashyan kartumarhasi. Sampashyan kartumarhasi. So, karmani eva, through performance alone, through doing what I'm supposed to be doing, through doing my own obligatory duties. Karmani eva samsiddhim. Siddhim, perfection. So each one of us are unique in our own ways. What I can do, nobody can do. What she can do, I cannot do. So each one are built that way. So here he's trying to say about how each one of us, through our own actions, can achieve that perfection, samsiddhim. Just like we have people like Astita Janaka Adi Janakadiyaha, which means Janaka and Adi, Adi indicating etc. So just like Janaka and others who did their jobs very well. So that is one argument. So we have Krishna giving two arguments. One is that argument, which is just like Janaka, who really perfected the art of doing his job as a king. Second reason, he says, is Loka Sangraham, which is Loka meaning people, Sangraham, which is the group of people, Eva api. So even for the sake of protecting the masses, Sampashyan kartum arhasi. So here we have Lord Krishna telling Arjuna, you're a king, right? You're born of a royal family. You are a great administrator and you are a king. That's exactly who Janaka was. So you see, I'm not giving you an example like, somebody who is a sannyasi, for example. Sannyasi can do, because of the simplicity of life and the purity of mind, they are probably capable of doing so much things. But Arjuna, I'm not telling you, I'm not comparing you to sannyasi. I'm giving you an example like King Janaka. And here, sometimes people wonder about what do you mean by Janaka and other kings, Adi? Were there other kings too at that time? And yes, there were more kings. And we will definitely talk a little more next time on this. But the whole idea here, what Krishna is telling Arjuna is, it's not just the kings who have attained this, but you as a king, you can't run away. You have to act as the role model. So you see how he's now bringing slowly, he's making Arjuna feel how he has that great responsibility. Loka sangraham eva api sampashyan kartumarhasi. You have to perform your role as a king and motivate more people. That is your duty. So that is what you need to do. And therefore, Arjuna, you have to fight the war. So that's how we see Lord Krishna is motivating Arjuna and indirectly motivating us also to look at our own skills and see how we can, learn from others and we can be a role model for others. So the next shloka, which I'm going to stop here, is you're going to love it. It's all about how do I get to be the role model? What do I need to do? What does that mean, being a leader? Who is a good leader? Just a very beautiful shloka again coming up. You can see how the line of arguments leading to perfecting ourselves is coming up. So we'll stop with that and we'll meet next week. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you, Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you, Sunitha.
Hari Om.
Thank you, Sunitha. Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Hari
Hari
Om.
Om, Sunitha ji.
See you, Amlan. Nice to hear your voice.
Thank you.
You're welcome. See you. Bye, Madhuri. Bye, Anita.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Loved the chart of gratitude about that consequences
Oh, you
and
like? Oh, really? Oh,
Yes.
benefits, and that was so unique and nice about Panchayagna. Thank you.
oh, thank you. I was worried that I might be repeating myself.
No.
This is the fourth time I'm speaking on this, but last time after I finished it, then I thought to myself, this yajna is really like gratitude.
Right.
Gratitude, it's so comprehensive, right? So I said, okay, then I need to present this
Right.
and really show the consequences. The 11 consequences we last time talked about, it just fits in all those buckets,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hari Om. Thank you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om, thank you.
Bye, Suresh.